Okay. Audio. Okay. Do they hear you? Okay.
They hear us, though.
Draft talk. Boom. I needed to read a text before I started the show, but now I can't read it anymore. But I'll wing it. It was a good text too, Dave.
Good what?
A good text. It's like all the little smoke screens. NFL people that gossip worse than like people who are into the Kardashians. Football and the draft is like our Kardashian world, our little celebrity world for men. You realize that, right, Dave?
Well, yeah, I mean, I know what you're saying about the lies. I remember talking to Mike Tannenbaum before the draft a few years ago, and he was saying, I don't understand why everybody is in, he was talking about the quarterbacks.
Uh-huh.
And he said we were going down the quarterbacks, and he goes, I don't understand why everybody's in love with Baker Mayfield. They keep comparing him to Drew Brees, but Drew Brees was an all-state tennis player. Mayfield, he was a walk-on. He was this and that, and then and you're right. At some point, the bells go off, and okay, they like Baker Mayfield.
Yeah,
right? I mean,
yeah.
Why else would he be telling me this stuff?
Absolutely. Now you hear the Cowboys. Oh, the Cowboys are enamored with Kyle Pitts.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just to make sure that Kyle Pitts goes ahead of them, so that they can get what they really want.
We're in the lion season.
Or it's the agents using the Cowboys to ensure that Kyle Pitts goes top 6, 7. It's
that's part of it, and the whole San Francisco. I'm buying the Jets are taking Zach Wilson. I mean that.
Well, I'm buying that too. I would take Zach Wilson number 2. We're going to talk about that on the show. So
yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's kind of sit. So the Miami Dolphins are inching closer and closer to a full makeover of the Brian Flores team that he inherited in 2019. And this is the 3rd draft under this regime, which could produce the finishing pieces that could turn this South Florida franchise into a perennial playoff team. That's what it's all about, Dave, right?
It is for me. I mean, a contender. I want a contender.
You want a contender? I will settle for the perennial playoff team. But Miami's got a ton of picks, a lot of them early, and they could use those picks to provide the building blocks for what's already a solid foundation, Dave. That's if Tua Tagovailoa becomes a quarterback, we hope. The Dolphins' offense and defensive line gets fixed. There's still improvements that needs to be made there. And, of course, Dolphins find a running game, Dave. We'll debate that. We have contrasting views on how important the running back is. We battle it out all the time. And this is draft season, Dave. It is April. It'll be interesting to see what happens, but we've got a month to talk about it. What, in your opinion, do you hope that the Dolphins do achieve in the 2021 NFL Draft?
My point in this draft is it's all about Tua. They're all in on Tua. Help him out in the best way you think that's possible right now, considering what they need on offense and what the draft offers. And that's my philosophy right now if I'm the Dolphins, because you need your quarterback, your franchise. The reason you tanked underwent this massive rebuild.
They didn't tank.
The reason you did all this and but expended 2 years so far, moving into a 3rd, was to, number 1, get a franchise quarterback. That was at the top of the list. So if I'm them, it's all about Tua right now, how to help him.
Definitely. You saw them spend year 1 trying to improve the offensive line. They got a couple of pieces on defense, but they added a quarterback. and they built an offensive line. Not a good offensive line, but it was a pretty decent offensive line. And we will see the growth. I know, Dave.
Right, Omar, come on now. Be fair. Fight fair.
We will see if there's growth in year 2. But to me, the draft is always an opportunity to predict and find players who can be impact players, difference makers. And it doesn't have to be in round 1. Olivier Vernon was taken in the 3rd round. He's had a pretty impressive NFL career. You have guys like Jarvis Landry taken in round 2. He's had a pretty impressive NFL career. Rashad Jones taken in the 5th round. He's had a pretty impressive NFL career. And I think it's important for you to definitely work to add impactful players. And to me, the only way to do that is to take the BPA approach, best player available. When the Dolphins drafted Jarvis Landry, they had a room full of decent, capable wide receivers. Jarvis Landry was a difference maker. It only took him half a year to show you that. And I just feel like that's the important thing. You can never, ever, ever put anything, including position needs, over best player available. So hopefully that is the approach they take in the 2021 NFL Draft. Our first question comes from Vin. Do you think that the receivers that Miami has now are enough weapons to go into the 2021 season with, Dave?
Oh, absolutely not. I mean, first of all, who can you be assured is going to be there in January? And remember, they're playing games into January now, regular season games, even before the playoff games in January, 17 games. Okay, Albert Wilson's played 20 of the past 48 games. He missed last year. Preston Williams
wasn't very healthy in the 2019 season either.
Right. Preston Williams, 16 of 32 games at the start of his career. Devontae Parker, now there's like 2 chapters of Devontae Parker's career. The injury chapter, the last 2 years, he's been very productive and very healthy. Okay, and the two go hand in hand. Okay, is that who he is? And beyond that, does he fit into what they're trying to do on offense right now? Okay, I mean, he's very productive the last couple years. So, and Will Fuller 1 year, and again, is he going to be in there in January? It's a great signing. I mean, 1 year you're rolling the dice. He's going to be healthy. I get he brings speed. I get why they did it. Makes all kinds of sense. But you put that group together and you say, you're crossing your fingers, okay? You are crossing your fingers. So is it
a lot of injured players?
A lot of injured players. That's my point. And you know, some good receivers. You don't have that. You know, great receiver. Okay, which you can live and thrive with a few good receivers. I mean, that's fine, but you don't have that superstar in the receiving corps.
I think, and just as you said, and you make a great point, if everybody stays healthy, I think they could be one of the better receiving units in the NFL without even adding a draftee. If Albert Wilson comes back and is Albert Wilson, if Lynn Bowden Jr. takes the next step as a NFL
right, there's another right.
If Preston Williams stays healthy, which he hasn't in 2 years, if Will Fuller he's a rental, he's a lease, but he needs to go back out on the car lot. So you definitely want to he's going to make sure that he presents something very interesting and desirable, whether it be to the Dolphins or somebody else. And then Devontae Parker. I am committed to Devontae Parker because I do believe that he fits this offense. He is that slant runner that is going to keep the RPO open. So is Preston Williams. The problem is he's got to be healthy, and you're just make the valid point that we don't know which Devontae Parker we're going to get on a given season. But I also want to point out that every injury Devontae has had has not been a season-ending injury. It's been a lingering injury, and that's his problem. You know you're going into a season where you're going to get a healthy Devontae Parker for about 70% of the season, and then you're going to get the other guy for the rest of the way. The question is, do you have the depth to sustain that? And I think that they do have the depth to sustain that right now.
All right, our next question comes from Chris. Right from that question, Florida tight end Kyle Pitts and LSU receiver Jamar Chase are going to be there when Miami picks at 6, and you can't trade out. Who are you taking? This is a hypothetical, but it's a hypothetical the Dolphins would love to face.
You know, I am picking Kyle Pitts to answer that question, and I spent a while. I've spent probably the last month. I've been looking at it since January, the draft, and understanding where the depth is, and looking at the top elite talents, and then looking at what's available in the later rounds. And the two things that I've concluded is I'm comfortable waiting on a receiver in day 2, and I'm even intrigued in what I can find in day 3. I think I can make do with what I've got and the Dolphins' depth. When I look at contractually, because when you dig deep into a team's what a team needs to do in the draft, for me, I also look at contracts, and I look at who's coming up in the contracts and whose salaries are getting bloated and whose performances priced themselves out of the position that the Dolphins might be comfortable paying. Right now, if you're going to re-sign Mike Gesicki, and this is the time where you would re-sign Mike Gesicki, it's probably going to cost you at least $12 million a season. We're talking 2 years of fully guaranteed at $12 million, $24, $25 million guaranteed, $12 million a year, just to keep on pace with what the Patriots just paid 2 tight ends that have contributed just as much as Mike Gesicki has the last few years. He would be the 3rd highest paid player on this team. And I'm not necessarily certain I'm comfortable with that. The way that I can address that is that I can add a player who gives me just as much, if not more, as a receiver in Kyle Pitts, and probably gives me, no, not probably, does absolutely give me more as a blocker. Does that mean that I'm moving on from Mike Gesicki? I don't know. I still have next year. I could franchise tag him, play him for about $10 million a year, and see where I feel and how we feel and whether it works. But I believe that Kyle Pitts is the 2nd best player in this draft behind Trevor Lawrence. And as I told you in the first segment, I believe in BPA. And if BPA matches a need and tight end is a need, I would actually put tight end as a need over wide receiver right now, because not only does Mike Gesicki have a contract that's expiring, but Durham Smythe, your number 2 high tight end, has a contract that's expiring. If I can add a superior player to both of them at a cheaper salary, it makes sense.
Okay, I go with Kyle Pitts too, and that said, it's basically a coin flip. Okay, Jamar Chase, he was the best receiver in college as a sophomore. He didn't play as a junior. You're getting a guy who, I mean, he's very raw. His ceiling is still immeasurable at this point. And so if they would take Jamar Chase, no problem at all. I'm not a draftnik, so I'm not going to sit here. The thing I like about Kyle Pitts is he can play any position, any receiver position you want, and that can cause all sorts of matchups. And at some point, the NFL, somebody is going to come up with this great idea. Did I just come up with this? In the NFL, which is Eric Spoelstra came up with in the NBA, positionless basketball. Okay, you got to have the right players, but at some point there's going to be positionless receivers. And they are guys who all 4 receivers can play anywhere on the field when they're on it, okay? Or 5, depending on whatever you want to do. Some can play look at what they're doing with Kansas City. The running back can play it or the wide receiver can move into running back, okay? He can be in the slot. He can be out wide. And if you can get enough of those guys, you can dictate to the defense where all sorts of matchup problems.
You're
okay.
Right.
And so Kyle Pitts to me fits into my view of the future in the NFL and why it's taken. I get some guys are positionless, okay? Yeah. But I want a whole receiving core that's positionless, and I develop them that way. So
you're right. And the funny thing is, the first person that I actually learned that positionless from is Adam Gase, he's not a very popular guy right now, but that he was the first person to teach me about that positionless football that he was striving to try to get to, and Mike Gesicki was an important piece in it. Obviously, it didn't pan out for him with Mike Gesicki, but just to get into a term, you're right. It's positionless football, and Kyle Pitts does add that. He can play flanker, he can play split end, he can play slot, he can play tight end, he can play H-back. Yeah, that's a very important piece. Mike Gesicki can't do all that. Now he can do a lot of it, but he can't do all that. But also an important element is, I'll use a term that I'm stealing from Simon Clancy. I was reading his draft book. You know Simon, he's been helping us out with the draft stuff for years. A satellite player, a satellite back. And that's that piece that is Lynn Bowden, where he moves in the backfield. He's a jet sweep guy. He's a handoff guy. He's out wide as a receiver. With Lynn Bowden Jr., Kyle Pitts, Will Fuller, and whoever they have in the backfield, you know who I want. It's nearly impossible to defend the Dolphins. It would be. So I definitely am on board with Kyle Pitts.
All right. Chris B has a question. Is there a slot receiver that you like in the later rounds?
Oh, absolutely. And that's part of the reason why I'm sort of cooling on taking a receiver at 6. Now, if a receiver is there at 6 and Kyle Pitts is not, I don't have a problem taking a receiver, whether it be Jalen Waddle or Devonta Smith. Hopefully Jamar Chase is there. I don't think he'll be there. I think the Bengals might take him. But there are a lot of young receivers that I really like in this draft. A couple of them, Ole Miss, Elijah Moore. I think he's going to be a good second-day guy. UCF's Marlon Williams. I think he's going to be a third-day guy. He certainly fits the bill of what you need. Louisville's Tutu Atwell. He is actually a Miami kid. I remember his father at Miami High playing quarterback, and he was an unstoppable player. And he's going to probably be a second, if not third-day guy. He's knocked a little bit because of his size. Much like Devonta Smith, he's in the 160 realm. I don't believe Devonta Smith is 170. South Carolina's Shi Smith, Western Michigan's Dwayne Estridge. Those are all guys that I think will be good gadget players, good satellite players. Then you get Kenneth Gainwell, a running back. Then you get Felton from from UCLA, Demetric Felton. Those are all players that I think fit well into what the Dolphins are doing, what they're trying to build with the RPO. I don't necessarily have to take that player in the first round.
Well, yeah, and as we've said before, this draft matches up well to what the Dolphins need. Okay,
Perfect.
there's a lot of receivers out.
I think they've strategically done that.
Well, there's a lot of receivers out there for them to get, and even if they would pass on or don't have the chance to take a Pitts or a Jamar Chase second round, Minnesota's Rashad Bateman, if you've watched him in college, he's very good. And North Carolina's, I keep coming back to the North Carolina. I think I'm having flashbacks to when they whipped up on Miami, where all I saw was their running back and their receiver, De'Ami Brown, just torch Miami. And so, look, there's a lot of options at receiver. Again, the question to me, the one missing link we don't know about the Dolphins, what kind of offense are they going? What do these coordinators want? This two-headed coordinator, this bizarre.
Dave, Brian Flores said it in his interview why he hired those two coordinators. He wanted continuity. He wanted to keep doing what he had been doing, keep the same language for Tua, and that's important. You certainly know the hiring of the promotion of Eric Sudfeld means they're going to be more run heavy. Thank you, Jesus. And it's hopefully they're more zone blocking, but then you got to redo your line. But,
well, I was going to say, Omar, we're getting into questions we don't know right there, and these are important. Go back to 2016, the Dolphins, and they changed their whole offensive philosophy with Adam Gase, start of the year to the middle of the year when Tannehill got hurt, and all of a sudden Jay Ajayi, they went to a power running game, and the offensive line loved it. I mean, I remember talking to a couple linemen, and they loved it. Came in next year, asked them what was wrong. Adam Gase changed the whole blocking scheme again, back to what he wanted, not to what was effective. Fundamental questions like the blocking scheme, we don't know.
Yes.
Okay. And which gets into what kind of players they want. It gets into how important is it going to be to have wide receiver. I mean, Bill Walsh Bill Belichick, the whole idea is you build out. You build interior first. Receivers are the last things to get. Are we there? Are we there?
On defense, they built outside in.
Yeah, and they built back to front on defense. But Bill Walsh and Bill Belichick, you look at the investments. Why do you think Tom Brady was mad? He didn't have any receivers to throw to. But their idea was to get the receivers last. Are we there? I mean, so philosophically, I'm curious what Chris Greer does. Philosophically, I'm curious what these offensive coordinators want. All right, this week, another trade potentially shook up the NFL draft and potentially the AFC East as well. The New York Jets traded quarterback Sam Darnold to Carolina for a 6th-round pick this year and a 2nd and 4th in 2022. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. Remember, the Jets traded 3 second-round draft picks for Darnold. And now they get, pennies on the dollar for him. Do you like the move for the Dolphins, Omar?
I do like the move for the Dolphins just because now you're starting over with a young rookie quarterback. Now, let's hope he's not the next Josh Allen or we're in trouble. I do like Zach Wilson. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But what I find interesting about what Carolina's decision is that they're saying, hey, Sam Darnold, who lost pretty much a quarterback battle with Teddy Bridgewater, who was then traded to New Orleans, who then led New Orleans to a 5-0 record, who then got a new contract from the Carolina Panthers, who then lost their starting running back and star running back, and the whole season was on his shoulders, and he was okay, not great. They're saying Sam Darnold, with 2 years of experience, is better than Teddy Bridgewater, already in the system, 6 years of experience, and had already lost the quarterback competition with Sam Darnold. Not to say that Sam Darnold didn't get handed the starting job with the Jets, because he did, but because we know how this all works. And now they're saying, Teddy, we're done with you. Find a new home, find a new team that wants to pay you the $18 million we've guaranteed to you. And I'm saying to myself, what's wrong with this picture here? How is it easier to sell Sam Darnold when he never has achieved anything that Teddy Bridgewater has achieved? And it just makes me think about what's always so unhealthy and problematic about this league, especially when it comes to African-American quarterbacks. You can't, and if you look at what's the flagship or the gold standard of this league now, Patrick Mahomes, Russell Wilson, Dak Prescott, the quarterback in Houston Texans. Funny how I forget his name now.
Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, considering all the drama and woo, not pretty. First red flag should have been like, you need 22 masseuse. Like, what's going on here? But all of them are African American or people who have African American blood, and it just makes me very uncomfortable. It's easier to sell Sam Darnold and guarantee him his 5th-year option, committing to paying him $26 million over the next 2 years, giving up 2022 draft picks. I'll worry about later. I'm just so uncomfortable with this. Like, what has Teddy Bridgewater done that's so horrible? And what has Sam Darnold done that's so impressive that you're willing to make this move?
Well, I mean, the simple answer is this: Matt Rule, who is his calling card is that he knows quarterbacks. Okay, he had a year to work with Teddy Bridgewater, and obviously didn't like him. Yeah. And so they're rolling the dice on Sam Darnold, and if they don't like him, they'll move on from him because they didn't pay much for him. I mean, for a risk at a quarterback, they didn't pay much. So
they paid the Josh Rosen freight.
Yeah, right. Same. So they're rolling the dice that Sam Darnold is better, and that the Jets are a screwed up organization. I mean, that for the past 3 years they gave Sam Darnold nothing to work with. He didn't make anybody better, but I mean, so we'll see. I don't know. Sam Darnold seemed to make one bonehead play a game that would lose the game for the Jets. Okay, and can Matt Rule, work that out of his game? I don't know. The question though for the Dolphins is Zach Wilson. if Zach Wilson comes in and is what some people are talking about, the Jets are a year behind the Dolphins in their rebuild, maybe a year, maybe 2 years.
I think they're about 2 years behind the Dolphins.
But they're set up this year. They have 3 draft picks in the top 34. They have 2 number ones next year. So they are set up in a similar fashion that the Dolphins were. And it all comes down to who's Tua Tagovailoa, who's Zach Wilson. We've seen who Josh Allen is in Buffalo. What is Bill Belichick's plan for a quarterback? Because he has one, but
Jimmy G.
I don't think so.
What intrigues me is that number 2 pick, it's perceived that it's Zach Wilson, and I've said it was going to be Zach Wilson back before January because I think he's a superior talent to Justin Fields. The question is, and this leads into what makes me so uncomfortable about when it comes to African American quarterbacks. Why is Justin Fields taking on so much baggage? Why is he taking on so much weight? Yes, I get it that he's a quarterback that comes from Ohio State and they haven't really panned out, and Dwayne Haskins hasn't exactly helped the scenario. But this guy was viewed as 1 and 2, Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields. Who's the better quarterback? And when they played head-to-head, it wasn't even a debate Justin Fields was a better quarterback. Yes, he got mollywopped by Alabama when he was playing with broken ribs, but how all of a sudden does he go from the second best prospect in this draft to now maybe the 5th quarterback in this draft?
Let's see where he goes, okay? And then have this conversation. Because as you know, we don't know who's telling the truth. We don't know who is somebody's water carrier in the media. We don't know. There's a lot of games being played. Let's see what happens in the draft and then revisit this conversation. Because San Francisco at number 3 is going to be interesting. So, okay, we talked. What does this mean for the number 2 pick? Is it going to be Zach Wilson or Justin Fields? Do you think it could be Justin Fields?
I think it'll definitely be Zach Wilson. He's safer, and I think the Jets need the safer pick. I'm not necessarily certain that Justin Fields or Zach Wilson. Part of the issue in New York is, can you handle that media market? Can you handle being the face of a major franchise in New York? And I don't think either player can really handle it. I don't think Sam Darnold handled it very well. And it's just the nature of the profession. But Zach Wilson has a superior arm to me. I think he's got the best arm in the draft, and I put that over Trevor Lawrence as well. So that's where I would go with that selection.
Yeah, I thought Sam Darnold handled New York as well as a guy who's not playing well on a very, very, very losing team can do. I mean, I never heard him complain. I never heard him. So, yeah,
Ryan Tannehill handled Miami well, and we're not even. It doesn't mean he was good. And he got better when he went to a smaller media market. And Sam Darnold could very well get better when he's in a smaller media market.
You putting it on the media markets has anything to do with anything?
Sometimes pressure bust pipes, Dave. I don't think Ryan Tannehill liked the criticism that he got here in South Florida. He's certainly crowned in Tennessee.
He's won in Tennessee. There's a large difference in what. Okay, what is Tua Tagovailoa need to do to ensure that doesn't happen to him? Meaning, the Sam Darnold situation doesn't happen to him.
Yeah, if we're looking at it, Sam Darnold. Remember when his rookie season, we saw. I think he lost both games, but we saw plays that made us go, "Okay, this guy's going to be pretty decent. He's going to be pretty good. In 3 years, he might be somebody we got to watch out for." And I'm not necessarily certain that we saw that from Tua this season. And we have to get to the point where I saw accuracy, I saw pocket presence from Tua and I saw the intangible from Tua in year 1. Those are all the reasons why I wanted him at 5. The question is the next step. Can he get chemistry with his wide receivers? Can he take the pocket presence to the next step? Can he read defenses and throw into tight coverages? Because that was the main criticism. Even Ryan Fitzpatrick said, hey, that's what the difference is between me and him. He's got to get there. He's not there yet. And I think that those things will come. but you got to give him the weapons. You got to give him the protection. You got to give him the run game. And that's all on management. And he's got to stay healthy. But all of the things that he needs, and I agree with you. In the first segment, you talked about this draft is about Tua. Yeah, it's about Tua. Give him the offensive line. Give him the run game. Give him the weapons. And then see what happens. And right now, I don't think that they're there yet.
Yeah, I mean, look, Tua, he had one stellar game as a rookie, the Arizona game, one of his first ones out there, and you thought, okay, they're on their way, right? And you didn't see that player again really the rest of the season. Was it play calling, which a lot of people want to blame? Was it, was he too small to see in the middle of the field, as a couple of scouts I've talked to have said? Was it just being comfortable to throw to certain receivers? There was some of that. The point is, look, it certainly wasn't his maturity level, how he handled himself, how he talked to the media and the team, we can assume, because that part is a given. You see why he's a very likable person, okay? But another question, with the 17th game, that means another game in the snow in the winter. And these are small things, but they all add up. You're going to be playing the way the NFL is setting up the schedules. You're going to play at least one game and sometimes two of your final games on the road in New England, Buffalo, and the Jets. Does he have the arm strength to win there when the wind's blowing, as it will in all those places? I mean, these are all little things that you're saying, what do I need to see? Yep. I need to see all of that. It's not like one little thing. It's a collection of many things. But you need to see the Arizona game more is the bottom line.
You know what? I love somebody told me this. I can't even remember who told me this. Some evaluator of football. Take out their best game, take out their worst game. And that's who they are. And when you do that with Tua, he's pretty average. And that's the troubling part. But as you pointed out, the arm strength is my biggest concern. When training camp got here and I saw him in person and live, I said, the arm isn't what I thought it would be. And it's not bad, it's just not good. And I wondered to myself, is this the hip, or was it just not what I thought it was at the beginning? And that to me has to be addressed. And I'm really hoping that it's the hip. Not to say he's not going to have a long career, because Drew Brees doesn't have the greatest arm. And there are a lot of intangibles that Tua has that Drew Brees has, the accuracy, the timing. But Drew Brees can see over the line. First time I've ever heard that can he see over the line issue is from you. And I'm definitely going to look into that. Might explain why Mike Gesicki wasn't as active as you would have liked. So it'll be interesting to see where his development is. But you got to watch his development for the next 2 years. Anybody who's making a judgment on Tua before he hits the 2023 season is probably making a premature one. So I'm going to be patient unless I can get Deshaun Watson, which now I don't necessarily know if I want Deshaun Watson. So, yeah, here we are.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Deshaun Watson is gettable right now with his issues. Okay, our next question comes from Matt. Comes as a statement. I believe Raekwon Davis will take the biggest leap forward this year from last year. Could you please tell me why I'm right or wrong?
I think that both of those players, Raekwon Davis and Brandon Jones, had pretty impressive second halves of the season. As you remember, Raekwon Davis actually began the year as a starter, struggled early, got benched, got hurt, Christian Wilkins got COVID, and then all of a sudden Raekwon Davis had to play a lot more, and we started to see him blossom. And I think I think he was the star of the rookie class last year, not Tua, Raekwon Davis. And I think that's encouraging. Brandon Jones had an okay season. I didn't really think he was that dynamic or that valuable. But again, we see the biggest jump with Brian Flores from year one to year two with players. And I'm expecting that jump from Brandon Jones, Raekwon Davis. And I'm going to give it to you, Dave. I'm expecting that jump from Austin Jackson and Solomon Kinley and Robert Hunt. Um, while I would like another piece on this offensive line because I think they have 4 quality starters, not 5. I would love to get the 5. I will say that I am anticipating a significant jump from all 3 rookies. Hopefully, Solomon Kinley drops 20 pounds. I say that like it's easy. I've been trying to drop 20 pounds for like 10 years, Dave. So
if you had a big contract waiting out there for you, you might have a little more motivation.
Yeah, very, very well stated, Dave. Yeah, somebody needs to put 20 grand on my 20 pounds, and I might get there. But yeah,
We'll get a GoFundMe going for Omar drops 20 pounds.
But yeah, Dave, and I didn't load this with offensive line questions just for you. But I'm not happy with the offensive line. And that's my spot. That's my jam. That's what I like. It's not good enough for me. But I am willing to say I'm patient enough to wait to see what can happen and what they can bring me in year 2. Now, if I don't see what I like in year 2, scrap it all, Dave. Just throw it away.
Does that do the same with Tua?
No, I told you 2023.
Oh, so you give him 3 years, but the lineman to get 2 years. Okay, I got it. Okay.
I mean,
All right,
those guys.
I'm just seeing where we're at here, Omar. Okay.
I got to be a little bit more patient with the quarterbacks, Dave.
I was a little more impressed with Brandon Jones as a rookie than you were, but we'll see. It's hard to say who's going to take this. Look, Raekwon Davis, you could see coming on.
Yeah.
As Omar said, the second half of his rookie year. You could see him, okay, he's causing trouble for offensive lines. Okay, so that's not – Austin Jackson, to me, was the one guy from the start of the year was plug-in, and he played well. Played average, which is well at left tackle in the NFL.
Average when he hurt his knee, though. Average when he hurt his knee and came back.
Yes. And that is a great sign for what he could be in the future, or what he should be in the future. Okay, OG Highway keeps coming up with good ones, so we keep reading them. If you were going to trade cornerback Xavien Howard, would you have done it before now? Greer and Flores have shown that any player can be traded. I have a hard time believing that no one has given Miami a substantial offer. Could he be traded during the draft?
This is an important question from this standpoint, and we'll begin this question. Xavien isn't comfortable, and they're not comfortable that he's not comfortable. Why is Xavien not comfortable? Because right now, he's the 12th highest paid cornerback in the NFL. Yes, that's a product of other people's salaries have gone up. Xavien, who got his deal 2 years ago, has been stagnant. But the Dolphins gave Xavien that money before he showed you that he was a top 20 player. We'll agree that on Dave?
Yeah, I would certainly put him there after his, like with anybody else's consistency. He based on last year only, definitely top 20 player.
So what do you do to address the fact that a player's uncomfortable that the guy opposite him, who the defense isn't built around him, is paid substantially more than him? How do you address that? How do you fix that? Okay, let's put that to the side. And then the other debate is, what can you get for Xavien that's comparable to what he brings to the table? Because if he's a top 20 player in this league right now, that's worth a first and a fourth, a first and something, a top 20 pick and something. Am I correct? Not correct? Where do you sit in that?
I don't think you can get value for him. And if an example of that is New England's Stephon Gilmore sold his house in New England. There were all rumors he was going to be traded. And, he's in the class of Xavien Howard. Xavien was better this year, but Gilmore's had a better, consistent career, a healthy career.
Too.
And he wasn't traded. So they didn't feel that they could, if he was on the market, they didn't feel they could get value for him. Beyond that, he is the one Dolphins elite player. You cannot keep trading. The Dolphins have had in their drafts, Chris Greer's drafts, yes, they've had 3 Pro Bowl players.
3 elite players. Yeah.
Yeah. Laramie Tunsil, Minkah Fitzpatrick, and Xavien Howard. Okay, so far those are the three that have progressed to Pro Bowl or in make us All Pro status. One of them's with them. The other two were traded in this rebuild. Okay, and my thought is, okay, it's nice to get those draft picks, but you traded two Pro Bowl players, so you need to get four Pro Bowl players with the drafts to make it worth the value.
I think it's hard. Now, the question is, do you have a player to replace Xavien if you trade him? Noah Igbenogany, we saw him last year, and I'm not down on him. He's a former Man Crush player on my list. Probably drafted a little bit higher than I thought he would have been drafted. I thought he would have been second-round talent. I get why the Dolphins took him in the third. I wish they would have taken a running back, but it's okay. But the question is, can Noah do what Xavien did last year? Or maybe can Byron Jones do what Xavien did last year and then Noah do what Byron Jones did? And the answer to that question is probably no. And if you get rid of Xavien, you're going to have to change up the whole.
Else, time moves on, and in sports, whoever signs the next contract, whatever signs the next contract, is going to be higher paid. That's just the way it goes. So I'd grip my teeth and say, let's go out and play. Let's go out and play. You got a nice contract, but that's me. I'm not in whatever contract, but that's me. I'm not in whatever. I'm not in the middle of whatever's going on. So, okay, Michael has a question. With all the talk of taking an interior offensive lineman in this draft, could a tackle and moving Robert Hunt to guard be a better decision?
The best way that you can help Tua improve as a young quarterback is to get him a monster of a running game. Get him an offensive line that's plowing people down and a back that can sustain and get you 4.5 yards per carry, get you into a 2nd and 5. Oh, it gets me going, Dave. Now, you have just sold me. I've been playmaker. I finally got off my Penei Sewell, and you have just brought me right back in, Dave.
Yeah. I mean, you can't argue they would be a better offense. And it'd be contrarian offense, okay? It'd be sort of what Tennessee did with Tannehill, okay? That now, can you win a Super Bowl that way? And that's my thought. Can you win a Super Bowl? And
quarterbacks got to be good. Quarterbacks can't be Tannehill. He's got to be elite if you're going to win a Super Bowl.
Look, Dallas had the best offensive line for years in the NFL.
Then
they won, I think, one wild card playoff game, okay? And they supposedly had the great quarterback in Dak Prescott, a great running back, and a
he wasn't great then. He was not great then, and I don't think he's great now. But he was Elliott? Yeah, no, the quarterback, Dak Prescott.
The quarterback. Okay.
But to your point, Dallas also had to go through Green Bay. They had to go through Seattle. They had to go through.
Where are the Dolphins going to have to go through?
Buffalo, Kansas
City. Okay, I mean, look. Let's not pretend they could sneak through with a decent quarterback and this decent that. No, they got to be built across the line. To me, this draft last draft was easy to me. You got to build up the lines. You got to get these lines were awful last year. This is a more philosophical decision for Chris Greer. Okay. What is important in team building? What is important to win in the NFL right now?
Okay. All right. Our final question from this segment comes from Jessica, who asks a very important question. Who is your favorite defensive player option to take at 18, Dave? What you thinking there?
Well, are we saying the Penn State linebacker Micah Parsons is going to be available at 18? I mean, he'd be my guy at 18. I don't think he's going to be around then, though. But
I think he might be around because he's got character. He's got some baggage with him. He's coming with some suitcases, Dave. And I am not a Micah Parsons fan for this reason, and we'll get into technical stuff. In an NFL, in a 4-3 scheme, he's a Sam linebacker. In a 3-4 scheme, he's an outside linebacker who is going to be an upfield rusher. He has no value as an inside player. Now, could he replace Kyle Van Noy and give you a little bit better than what Kyle Van Noy had? Yes. But I'm not necessarily certain that I want to draft that player at 18, and I'm not necessarily certain that he's a Brian Flores type of player.
To me, the interesting question here is which University of Miami pass rusher would you take first, Rousseau or Phillips? Both of them have very good careers. Both of them have shown that they can be pass rushers, and they're different. They're different pass rushers.
They're different pass rushers. I stopped watching UM because I couldn't handle it emotionally anymore. But when I was watching UM, I would look at it from a draft perspective. And Greg Rousseau, I was infatuated with him at 19. And I ran into him at the combine because UM was taking him there for some issue that he had with the clearinghouse or whatnot. And I ran into him at the hotel, and I was like, man, you're like, he wasn't as big as I thought he was, or as imposing as I thought he was. And that's one of the things that I still can't get past. But then I watched Jalen Phillips last year, and I did some film study on him last night. And he's more impressive on film than he was when you just casually watch UM. You can watch that North Carolina game, and it'll definitely turn you off. But sets the edge well, has an arsenal of pass rush moves. And those are the things that I look for in prospects, which makes me say he can be there at 18, and I would be happy with it. The only problem is he's got that medical stuff, and we always don't know the baggage that these guys come with from a medical standpoint, and that makes him a risky first-round pick. I'm not certain that I'm comfortable taking a risky first-round pick at 18. I'm more comfortable taking it at 25, 26, 27. So I don't know where to go with that one, Dave, but I will say.
Well, here's where I'll go with it, Omar. I'm here to help Tua with this draft because you need an answer at quarterback. And as much as I might be tempted to take a defensive player, if there's an offensive player who I like that can help my quarterback right now in year 2, because we need that answer. We need that answer now. I'm taking that guy. I'm not going defense.
It sounds like you're talking about a running back that I shall not name, but
I'm not. If you're going to take that would be very high to take a running back.
If you're going to take Najee Harris, you'll take him at 18. You don't wait for the second round because he's not going to be there in the second round.
Well, or you trade up from your second round pick.
I don't want to do that either. I take him at 18.
Chris Greer likes to trade, Omar. He likes to trade.
He does like to trade. Maybe I trade down.
Got a lot of draft picks.
Huh?
Got a lot of draft picks.
I don't think Najee Harris. I think Arizona's the first place that's going to take him. Then if he gets past Arizona, I'm not sure he gets past Baltimore. Then if he gets past Baltimore, if he gets past Pittsburgh, I don't think he gets past Pittsburgh. The good teams, the teams that actually know how to evaluate talent, they're going to take him.
I tell you, you don't want him to land in Buffalo. You do not want to land in Buffalo. And
then you take him at 18, Dave. Then you take him at 18. Over the course of the past 2 decades, we've both seen some pretty good Dolphins draft, and we've also seen a few that have produced quite a lot of chuckles and a lot of regret over the years. Dave, let's go down memory lane. Share with me your favorite draft story, Dave, of the Dolphins.
Favorite draft story was in the olden days, okay? Long time ago, before I assume ESPN had it live on TV, but it's hard to. We would congregate in the old Dolphin complex, the Don Shula days. Terry Kirby was drafted, 3rd-round draft pick, running back, very good, a receiving running back, had a nice career, but it came out. It came out in one of the draft books because Joel Buchsbaum's book. Mel Kiper had his book, Joel Buchsbaum had his book, and one of the paragraphs said he was blind in one eye. And this was before, anyways, Don Shula comes into the press conference afterwards, and he's asked by somebody, "Hey, there's a report out that Terry Kirby's blind in one eye," and Shula's like, "I don't think there's any." And as he's getting off the podium, he turns to his pro personnel director and he goes, "Did we draft a blind guy?" He wasn't. It was a wrong report, a very bizarrely wrong report, but I mean that always made me laugh.
That's a good story. My favorite story, and the story I think I learned the most from, was 2009. If you remember that draft, I'll tell you why you will remember that draft. That was the Pat White draft. And if you remember, there had been a long stretch of a decade where Bill Parcells had not gone to the Senior Bowl. He just didn't see any need for it, any value for it, even though he's up close and personal with these prospects, gets to talk to them. And he was in his old man curmudgeon stage, and he just didn't want to deal with everything that came with the Senior Bowl. But one player motivated him to go watch him at the Senior Bowl in person to determine whether or not this guy was going to revolutionize the game. And while Bill Parcells' thought process was right about that the athletic scrambling quarterback was going to change and revolutionize football, he was ahead of his time. He just picked the wrong quarterback, Pat White, who was way too small to actually look over the offensive line, and we bring that up with Tua. And I've talked to Pat White, and the hand, he could not throw an NFL ball without his glove, and Parcells made him take off his glove. But after watching, and Pat White had a phenomenal Senior Bowl week. It was very good. I got sold on Pat White. I got sold on what Bill Parcells had the vision of, and the vision was right. The selection was just wrong.
The vision was the Wildcat. I mean, it wasn't quite.
It was a scrambling quarterback.
Yeah.
That the Lamar Jackson was, and Pat White, to his credit, because I remember being at the Senior Bowl when Russell Wilson was at the Senior Bowl, and I was there, and I was with Pat White, and we went to the field that we were talking about, why it didn't work out, and because Pat was like, "Man, you were hard on me," and I was like, "I was just doing my job." I had that same conversation with John Beck last year. It is what it is. And we go to the field to talk to Russell Wilson, and you'll remember this because you were big on Russell Wilson. You're banging the drum, and
I've locked that in my mind. Don't bring that back out.
I remember walking to the field with Pat White, and me and Pat White are the same size. Me and Russell Wilson are the same size. Russell Wilson is like infatuated with Pat White. He's like, "Man, I looked up to you as a player. You were it for me. You were my inspiration. You were everything." And I'm thinking to myself, like, and he's showering Pat White with praise, and Pat White's so humble and just like feeling all bubbly. And I'm thinking to myself, like, this guy's the same size as Pat White. It won't work. Cut it. It's over. And, that's just one of my favorite draft stories.
Pat White reminds me, the unfortunate part of covering a franchise that for most of 20 years has been with the elevator going down is you meet good guys. Pat White was the nicest guy. He was a great guy.
John Beck,
great guy.
Quarterback guru of the draft world. He's working with Justin Fields. He's working with Zach Wilson. Who isn't he working with? Because he's the guru. And all I could think about whenever I see him on the field with these guys is Bill Parcells and his buzzer ruined John Beck. And for those who don't know, back in 2008, and Chad Henne was a quarterback, Josh McCown was a quarterback, John Beck was a quarterback. The Dolphins didn't care who won that competition, but they had a buzzer that went off when the quarterback needed to throw the ball. And if you still had the ball in your hand when that buzzer went off, the play was a bad play. And John Beck could never throw the ball before the buzzer went off. And it just was his undoing.
We'll have to have a whole show on all the bad quarterbacks we've seen in practice. But for now,
Oh my God, the worst was Brady Quinn. I had never seen, and me and
Oh
Brady.
my God, you're going to do this to Brady Quinn again. You just want a radio segment from Brady Quinn.
I do not want a radio segment with Brady. I don't want the Brady Quinn smoke because he has more vessels of media entity to destroy me. But let's be real about it. That was the worst quarterback that I'd seen in a Dolphins uniform.
Which feeds right into the draft and how little people know. Because when the Dolphins didn't take Brady Quinn, they were booed off the stage. It was a loud, and that is really the draft moment of them all. If we're coming up with draft moments, where I mean, the level of ineptitude on all degrees, but the one call they got right, not drafting Brady Quinn, they were booed off the stage. Cam Cameron said, "We got to turn them this way." That's the one thing they got right.
Yeah.
Okay? So, all right, Alex wants to know, what's the best position to target later in the draft?
I think it's linebacker, and I'm intrigued by what the Dolphins did with Bernardrick McKinney and the re-signing of damn, why is the name escaping me? The re-signing of the inside linebacker. His name is Landon Roberts. And the addition of 2 linebackers, because linebacker happens to be the deepest position in this draft. I think that you can get some studs in day 2 and day 3. Ohio State's Baron Brown, UNC's Chad Surratt, LSU's Jabari Cox, even UM's Quincy Roche. I think he's an outside linebacker in a 3-4 scheme, which like the Dolphins run. I think that you can find some really good linebackers in day 2 and 3. But the way that the Dolphins have addressed that position, it makes me feel like they're going to address other things.
Yeah, they got Vince Beagle too, Omar. I mean, okay. Our next one comes from Norman C. Is there a hidden gem pass rusher from Miami that could get on day 2? Who would make an impact?
A pass rusher that Miami can get on day 2. As I was telling you, I was studying a lot of the pass rushers and defensive end. People don't realize this. Edge player is the Dolphins' #1 need. It's not even debatable. You could say whatever you want about running back. They can get by with Myles Gaskins and Ahmad and what's his name, Salvon. You can say wide receiver. They've got a good stable. It's not great, but it's good. You could say tight end. That's a contract situation. Linebacker. They just addressed it. Edge player is the #1 need for this team, unless they're going to have defensive tackles play the edge. I like the UM players. I like all 3. I like Quincy Roche. Jalen Phillips, to me, would be right now my front runner in terms of the UM players that I would want. And I like Greg Rousseau, but I'm uncomfortable that he sat out a whole year, and I don't know where he is physically. But there are a lot of guys like Wake Forest's Carlos Basham. We saw him at the Senior Bowl. Pittsburgh's Rashad Weaver. We saw him at the Senior Bowl. A lot of guys that I think that I can get in the later rounds that I think can do what the Dolphins need. And understand that they generally don't necessarily want stars. They want the athletic mold of the players that they want. They want a Kyle Van Noy, a Andrew Van Ginkel. They want a Vince Beagle. And those are kind of hard players to find, and they're in demand by those teams that want them. There are about 8 teams that run the same scheme as the Dolphins want, and they'll be going after the same edge players. So if you're going to take an edge rusher, you got to take them in the top 50 picks.
Yeah, I don't know how much they value a classic defensive end pass rusher. And you look at New England, they don't value that guy. And they value just the guys, let's face it, who they have. A lot of Kyle Van Noy types without his contract. Anyways. Okay, David has our final question. What is the earliest round you'd be willing to address the center position?
Ooh, I think I'm definitely not selecting a center in the first round.
Okay, that's all I want to hear, Omar. That's all I want to hear from you, okay?
I don't see a Mike Pouncey in the draft. I would rather select an offensive tackle or offensive guard if we're going to go offensive line in the first round. But I am enamored with Creed Humphrey. I do really, really like him. Alabama's Landon Dickerson. I wouldn't select him in the second round just because of the medical. I'm dropping him around, so I'll probably put a third round grade on him. But I'm uncomfortable with it. It's funny that I'm uncomfortable with a lot of the traditional centers. I like a lot of the guards that I want to transition to center, which means it might take a year of developmental time. And I think I go that route as opposed to the Georgia's Trey Hill or the Ohio State's Josh Myers. I just don't really feel it from them. I would rather go with a Quinn Mizert or Notre Dame's Aaron Banks and transition him to center. I love Aaron Banks, by the way. I think he's one of my favorite players in this draft. I fell in love with him at the Senior Bowl. I watched Notre Dame's film for the prospects that they have, and I think he's dynamic. I add him, and I let whatever happens at center happen. Dieter can snap. Jesse Davis can snap. We got Matt Skura. I'm throwing Aaron Banks in there. Hell, I'll let Solomon Kinley snap if he wants to. But I'm not drafting a center super high.
Yeah, I love to hear that, Omar, because I'm not as I said, a draftnik where I can analyze all these centers and say, oh, I take this guy late in the second round and this guy in the third. But I'm a judge of draft philosophy. When the Dolphins took Mike Pouncey as the highest center in NFL history,
yeah,
I'm like, what does that say about team building and roster building and all the important? And I get it's a
bad pick though. I still say that's not a bad pick. He didn't last. He played a decade in the NFL. So
it has nothing to do with him. It has to do with the importance of the position and the value you can get out of that position. Okay, when you look around and okay, where are the Super Bowl champions? You know, how are they being built? They're not with a center being the 15th pick in the draft. I mean, that's just they're using those on playmakers, on guys who can really change the game. And the margin, the difference between a great center or a center in the first round and second round shouldn't decide whether you're going to be. It tells me more about philosophy of your team building more than just that what the GM thinks is important.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys for watching X's and Omar. We have dived into draft talk. This is my favorite time of season, so it's right in my lane. Dave, always appreciate you being here for X's and Omar. And if you want to ask more questions, we can use some of them on the Dolphins Q&A. Just ask them with X and Omar hashtag. Me and my partners, Asaf, will find it. You can find X's and Omar on the Sun Sentinel site. Also, the plays on YouTube. And you can find the podcast on anywhere you find streaming sites. Just search for X's and Omar. Dave, see you next Wednesday at noon.
All right, Omar.